So yeah, news roundup, just quickly what the usual stuff. You've got hardware's out and about, any interesting news. I've kept that really short because we've got Damien and Jim also talking tonight. And I'm going to talk a little bit about PyCon AU as well. We're not going to do the roadmap, I think, tonight. You guys, we'll defer that to the next month. But Jim's going to talk a little bit about BLE because everyone wants to know about it. And Damien's going to talk about native modules just because it's good. So I'll get into the new hardware stuff. We talked last month about the M5 Stick V. That's one of those. So if anyone wants to play with it, they can. This thing's a bit of a beast. It's dual core, RISC-V processor, 8 meg RAM, 16 meg flash. It's got extra silicon on there to do artificial intelligence acceleration. It's got a camera, it's got a display, it's got audio amplifying and a microphone. It's a pretty amazing little piece of kit. I haven't played with it much yet. I had it a little while, but
how much was it?
$30, $30, 20 or 30, something in that order. Yeah. They're actually wanting to add Wi-Fi to this as well, so this one currently doesn't have it. I've just got no. I'm going to get one of those beta devices, so we'll be able to play with one of those next little while. It's a little SD card stuff as well. So yeah, if you want to have a fumble with it, go for it. The other one we covered a couple of months ago, which was the Roundup low dev. And this is an interesting thing. It has like a little chip on here, which is it's a combination device. It has an STM32 in it, as well as what do they call it, SX1276 LoRa radio. So on the one bit of silicon, you've got kind of both of those things. The only problem is it's quite a low-end STM32. It's only got 20k of RAM. So the big challenge I've given the Jim is to try to get MicroPython running on this in a useful fashion. He seems somewhat confident.
Yeah, RAM's not the problem, it's the flash.
Really? 192k? Yeah, too small?
It's still.
Okay. Anyway, the guy who put this together seemed somewhat keen about getting MicroPython running on it as well. But you can get those from Crowd Supply. They're about $35 just now. Reserved it. So yeah, feel free to come up and play with those, of course. Other announcements was the TT4. I don't know if you guys all saw this, but it's got Cortex M7 in it. It's 600 meg. This thing's it's a bit of a beast. It's mega RAM, 2 mega flash. It's an astonishing little piece of kit. It's about 5 or 6 times faster than the ESP32. Just to give you an idea of where that sits in a number of benchmarks. It's also got a couple of USB at 480 megahertz. It's got 7 serial ports if you want to use them. It's really small. It's 14 pins either side. It's also got a ton of breakout test points in the bottom if you want to use more than what's broken out in the breadboard. It's getting a little bit of a stir because it's quite powerful. It's the most powerful microcontroller you can sort of buy at the moment. Is what they're advertising as, and it's only $20. So it's quite an interesting bit of kit. There is already a port for that chipset. Someone's ported an OpenMV port to that chipset, so they've already got one. I'm still waiting to get one. There's also the Orange Crab. Now this thing hasn't been released yet, but Greg Devil, who's a South Australian, hi Greg, has been doing all sorts of interesting hardware for a long time now. If you want to see some of his work, go look it up on Twitter. His hardware skills are just out of control. But this one's interesting because it's using an ECP5 FPGA on a feather, a native root feather form factor, and they're hoping to get the same leverage off the FOMO, which we'll talk about in a minute, but to get a RISC-V processor on a soft core on this running MicroPython as well. The interesting thing about this chipset, of course, is that it's got a gig of DDR3 RAM. So this FPGA has, I think it's like 150 pins, and half of them are dedicated to DDR3. So yeah. The other thing is there's like 67 parts on this, but half of them are 0201 decoupling caps, so, which Greg hand placed, just for anyone who's got good eyesight. You know what that's like, it's not fun. He's also got a really detailed Twitter thread on how it's come together, so yeah, I think it's really interesting. I don't know what I'm going to do with something that has a gig of RAM and 16 meg of flash, but sure. Deshipu, Radomir, I'm not going to use his surname wrong, but if anyone knows Radomir's surname, he's released this stage library, which is to do tile and sprites. It's a tile and sprite engine for MicroPython. He's got it running against the M5 stack and against generic ESP32 with ST7735 displays. He's got a small part of it's a C module to handle a lot of the fast blitting stuff that he needs to do, but the majority of the library is actually in MicroPython, so more details in the forum link there. It's kind of cool, he's got a few games that he's written. This thing I want to spend a little time on, Rose, put your hand up. Rose. Hi, Rose. After PyCon, we got in touch with the PyLadies in Melbourne here, who Rose is representing tonight. We're going to do a workshop with them on October 21st, if we keep to that date. And I'm kind of using it as a way to try to figure out how we can improve some of the beginner experience with MicroPython. So we're trying to put together like beginner kits and get some documentation online so that people can walk through doing some basic sort of MicroPython projects in a workshop sort of format. And the PyLadies are going to be the first people we're going to try this out on. So Rose has been kindly going through some of our poor documentation at the moment to try to improve it. And the idea is that we have this kit that'd be based around the ESP32 with a couple of shields. We've chosen those because it means no breadboarding and they're quite affordable. And people could use them during the workshop or during a night like tonight. And if they wanted to, they could buy it just to cover the costs. And so I think that'll really help with getting people started with MicroPython. So, yeah, I might reach out to a few of you with some help. Oliver's been really helpful. Thank you, Oliver, for putting some of that documentation together. And we'll continue to do that over the next month. So if anyone got any questions or about that, come talk to me. I just want to also mention that the Slack channel's got a bit more activity more recently. We've got over 200 people and it seems to be more activity with it recently, so I encourage you to go check it out. You can get some assistance there pretty readily. And Sion, who's not here, Sion's been quite sick for those of you who know. He was in hospital on Friday with some nasty problems, but I'm sure, I spoke to him last night, he was doing okay, he's back home. He's on the mend, they're not sure what went wrong, but plenty of antibiotics and good drugs, he will seem to be okay. But his Discord server that he set up, originally around the Tiny Pico, but it also covers there's a MicroPython channel on there as well. There's another community there if you want to leverage into that. So he told me to share that with you. Right, and the only project I wanted to do, I had a bunch of projects, but I ran out of time to document them all, but this one was interesting. It was the first tutorial I've seen based around the M5 Stick V, and that was to basically just take the video stream and convert it to ASCII. So with some short MicroPython code, you can see the video rendering coming out over the graphic. I thought it was kind of cool. Now, I think that's what I had for you for now. I'm going to talk about PyCon AU, unless Damien wants to talk now.
No, we've done.
Sure, okay.
Matt, you mentioned the phone loop before.
Yes, I will get back to that in a second.
Oh, okay, I'll let mate.
Yeah, cool. It kind of ties into some of the work, some of the PyCon AU stuff. Right, I gave this talk at, my work was kind enough to support me in paying for accommodation, paying for flights to PyCon AU. One of the deals was that when I came back I had to talk about it. So this was a slide set that I put together for work and gave it a lunchtime brown bag. I've tried to tailor it to this audience though. So for those that don't know, who knows what PyCon AU is? Yes, who doesn't know is probably the thing I should have asked. But, right, so it's the national conference for everything Python related. It's a 5-day conference, but it's got 2 main days, which are on the Saturday and Sunday, where they've got 4 streams of talks that are all going on at once. So you choose which talk you want to go to. On the Friday, they also have a specialist track day. Again, 4 streams of talking, but they have like a dedicated sort of topic. Whereas on the Saturday and Sunday, it's very general. And then on the Monday and Tuesday, they have a sprint days. And this is kind of just an acknowledgement that people get together at these conferences, and the sprint days gives them a chance to work together with people so you can sort of hack on your favorite project. And so we spend a bit of time with MicroPython on the Monday at least. A ton of talks, there's 80 talks. There was 4 deep dives this year. I gave a talk which was a deep dive. We've got 2 other talkers here, presenters from PyCon. I'll get to them to talk briefly about theirs in a sec. But the good thing is they're all available on YouTube, so you can go watch them for free. Yeah, that's really fun. They also have a lighting talk session, so on the Saturday and the Sunday evenings they have a 1-hour dedicated slot. So instead of having all these 4 different simultaneous talks. They've just got one big room, so 600 or 700 people in a room for people that they can nominate to talk about something for 5 minutes, and it's a hard 5 minutes. So yeah, you get some really interesting talks. It doesn't have to be about Python. They're usually just really interesting and quite fun. I talked at work about why Python's important. I'm probably preaching to the converted here, but I guess the take-home point was this: that Python's growing at a ridiculous rate, faster than any language you've ever seen ever since we've been recording it. So back on this page, if you want to link to, I'll link to this. You can go read about some of the stats on that. It's quite astonishing to see the growth that Python's had, and MicroPython's actually responsible for a recent uptick there. But I guess it's really been leveraged off the data science community in particular, but also the machine learning community too. Right, so interesting things about the conference is that it's really well run. The food's really good. They keep the schedule really well. They have like chairs, people who organise the speaker, so they introduce people. All that's really well sorted out. They do it in 2-year bursts, so they can negotiate deals with venue and food caterers. So this last 2 years has been in Sydney. Next year it starts off in Adelaide for a couple of years. Don't know where we'll go after that. But the International Convention Centre in Sydney was a fantastic venue, really good features, really good facilities. One really key feature of PyCons in general is that it's a pretty inclusive and safe environment. So they go to a lot of lengths to make sure that there's a code of contact it's stuck to, and they just sort of don't tolerate any sort of problematic behaviour, I guess, which is kind of good. And you see that in the audience. The audience is more diverse than you normally get in a programming language conference. So it's a really good thing that they do. I think I've said, 700, well, just shy of 700 people this year, 80 talks, and 25 lightning talks. The AV team is amazing. They actually have a lot of the talks are up on YouTube an hour after they're finished. And yeah, I don't know how they do that actually. It's pretty impressive. Social networking is really interesting. There's a lot of activity on Twitter and on a Slack workspace. And so while you're talking, while you're in the audience, there's all this discussion going on. And a lot of gatherings are just organised on the fly with social media. So I think it's a really interesting part of that conference. There's a few noteworthy talks. I probably want to go through all of these in great detail. These are just a few that I saw that I've watched since. And you can sort of get an idea for the scope of the topics. So Russell talked about WASM, which is getting things running in the browser in a fast way. Andrew Goldman gave a huge talk it was a deep dive as well, on getting async behaviour into Django. He's been working on this for a couple of years, and it's pretty impressive the lengths that you've got to go to sort of shoehorn that kind of model into something like Django. I won't go through all these, but you can read them and take a look. And then go have a look at the schedule as well. The schedule gives you a brief summary of what each of the talks are about, and links to the YouTube page. So if you just Google PyCon 2019 and schedule, you'll get that. The lightning talks, as I said, 2 1-hour sessions, 5-minute talks. Any topic is accepted. So the way it works is that people put a slip of paper, they stick it on a board, and then by lunchtime of the Saturday, for example, you'll be told if you're talking at Saturday evening. And yeah, it's just some really interesting stuff. So if you do watch only one video, apart from your guys' videos, Damien and Jim both talked as well, but I think William Brown's is a really good one. He talks about history and politics, but of supermarkets and how they've gone through mergers over the last 100 years or something in Australia and New Zealand, which sounds ridiculously dry, but it's a really amusing look at I don't even know how you come up with that topic. It's crazy. And yeah, it's really diverse as well, so you can see down the bottom here there's a few other things, like Jim talked about how the moon worked, and Damien talked about fermions, which was part of his PhD. And yeah, there are other people talking about how being Jewish affects their ability to go to conferences and what kind of effect that has. So all these are available on YouTube. I've actually submitted an index, so you can actually click straight onto Lightning Talks is just like a 1 hour slot, but we've actually broken it down now, so you can click on exactly which talk you want to listen to or watch. So MicroPython is pretty well represented. We had 6 talks which touched on MicroPython. I will quickly go through these. Jack talked about microbits, and I know this is something close to Jim's heart, but talking about how the microbits used in education, and so MicroPython's used on these microbits. So I don't know if I've got one here, but the microbit was given out to every year 7 student, roughly, 7 or 8, early high school in the UK, as a way of improving their abilities around computer science over there. And I think we've seen, cool. So this is a microbit. They're relatively inexpensive, about $35.
22 Australian.
Okay, cool, yeah. They're a Nordic chipset. You can probably tell me a lot more about this, but there's a gyro, accelerometer. On the back there's a cute matrix of LEDs, which for kids is really effective. They get really involved in that. A couple of switches, and a pin out at the bottom here which you can plug into a whole bunch of peripherals that have been made, or you can just get alligator clips and clip onto them. They've got like a little radio transmitter on there as well. So it's a pretty cute little device. And there's a whole bunch of infrastructure that's been built up around it. Thank you for the pizza. And so they run MicroPython because Damien wrote it to work on the microbit. So Jack talked to him about those and why he thinks they're a great thing for education. This second one's using comedy as an excuse to play with Python. And this is from 2 people who were involved in a comedy troupe, and they were just so excited about being able to integrate technology into their routines because they felt that using MicroPython, or in this case CircuitPython, to build props and make them animate, and like spin a little flower, all this kind of stuff. So it was really interesting seeing their perspective and how, because it's now more accessible to do this stuff, they can go and use it. Whereas if it had been a C-based language, it's just off the table. They wouldn't have been able to use it. So I thought that was really cool. Andrew, what did you talk about?
Alright, so yeah, where I work was also good enough to send me to PyCon, and sure.
Stand right here.
Yeah, hi. So I'm also lucky enough to be working on a commercial project running MicroPython, which is an actual medical product. So my talk was all based on some of the journey of how we managed to make that fly at work at a medical device consultancy, and some of the sort of issues we run into, how to fix them, and just the different ways that designing on MicroPython has been better than a traditional C-based project, and some of the ways that you can actually wrap up MicroPython into a commercial device so that an end user will just use it without knowing that there happens to be a full little MicroPython running behind the scenes, make it look like any other commercial product on the market. Yeah, I think it went pretty well. Even had a live demo and it worked, so it's good. It's point of care diagnostic units, so it's for use by doctors and in pharmacies and the like, for based on those lateral flow strips, so the single use little test strips are in cartridges for a wide range of disease and illnesses. One that we're involved with directly at work will give a 10-minute on-the-spot blood test for whether you've got a bacterial infection or a viral infection. And I'll tell you that without having to send that test off anywhere. But a lot of different kinds of on-the-spot diagnostics are capable with this reader.
It was a cool talk.
I particularly enjoyed the Jupyter integration.
Yeah, so that was one of the things I've been
excited for this graph.
working on. Here's one I prepared earlier. This is actually the live demo I did in the talk. But yeah, so the Jupyter is literally one screen worth of 2 cells. But the top cell there is running live on the board, and the bottom cell is running on the computer, which gives you access to the Jupyter widgets, so you can play around with your hardware live and explore the hardware space. Yeah, pretty much all of our sort of original testing is done with the Jupyter interface, so you can write your device drivers and test them and flesh them all out to full functionality before transferring it over into the actual project source files that get frozen into the firmware images. Yeah, very productive.
I'm sure if you've got questions, Andrew will be happy to talk more about
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Yeah, we've got a second project starting soon, running MicroPython, so it's been a success. Another medical device.
And Jim talked about stuff too.
It wasn't terribly MicroPython related, more Python, but it could be ported to MicroPython. If people are interested in talking about this later, I have a fairly large investment in home automation ZigBee stuff in my house, and it was a tale of woes of getting that working. But more in it, like sharing my experiences so you can have a laugh at no expense. And at the end of the talk, I was saying how happy I was that it worked, how well it works, and it's worked really nicely for over a year now. And I come down to Melbourne today, yesterday, and
Jim's was sitting, folks.
and my wife called me up last night to say, I've just got home and every light in the house is on and none of the switches work. And so obviously not as successful as it is.
That is every single time I travel.
But fortunately I have remote access to it and got it working again. But anyway, we can talk about that later if people are interested.
It's a really fun talk, man. Michael gave a talk on gotchas with MicroPython, and this was interesting because he had like a thermal printer that he managed to get working with a PyCon device, and then he talked about some of the trials he had getting it working with like an ESP8266 and then some other device as well. So there were some differences in the different ports, and so he was just discussing some of those issues that you had to face. But it was good to see from that perspective as well. And I talked about extending MicroPython, so I was talking about using C modules and how you can create those to get better performance out of it. Because I keep hearing about how it's an interpreted language, and there's a bit of fear around people who want to use this as a serious product. But if you're prepared to drop into C for certain parts of your application, you can implement them in a way that's as fast as C. And so the example I gave, or I built the talk around, was around QR codes. Generating was pretty slow in MicroPython. So I took a pure Python library, ported it to MicroPython, and it took about 1.5 seconds to generate a simple QR code. And that blew out to about 10 seconds on a larger QR code. Then I showed that roughly the same implementation written in C takes 11 milliseconds, and so there's a big performance difference. But then I found that if you wrapped that module in MicroPython, so you can call it from MicroPython, just like you would in regular, if this was a regular Python module, it also took just 11 milliseconds. So I went through some of that was a 70-minute talk, so I'm abbreviating it a little bit. We talked a little bit about micro-optimizations, about what you can do before dropping into C, the porting effort, some of the common things you'll run into when you're porting from Python to MicroPython. And one of the key things was getting native modules working, which I didn't demonstrate in the end, but Damien went to great lengths to show how native modules worked. What that means is that normally when you create a C module in MicroPython, you build the entire firmware and you deploy that whole thing to your device. Native modules let you skip that whole deploying everything. You would have your regular MicroPython deployment, and then you would just load a native module containing native C code and just load it at runtime. And this is still a very new feature, and Dana's going to talk about it a little bit more tonight and make everyone understand what this diagram here means, I think. Just to wrap up the PyCon stuff, we had a sprint day. You guys only stuck around for the one day? Yeah, there was no one else. Just the one day. You were there too? Yeah, cool. Certainly on the Monday we had a good turnout. It was really productive. I spoke, we got a whole bunch of things going on. But I also spent some time with the FOMU gang. Now you remember the FOMU is the tiny little thing. For those that don't remember, well, got some here. Because the first there was the TOMU, now there's the FOMU, there's also the SOMU and the FEMU, but we'll talk about that next time. This was started by Tim, working with Sean, and Luke Valenti, who does the tiny FPGAs, helped lay out the original board. But it's basically a little FPGA and USB port. And that's what it looks like, magnified about 1 million times. So it's a little ICE FPGA here, bunch of power stuff that's important. I've got a DFU bootloader running on it. They want to get USB mass storage on it, so you can just drag and drop a blob of firmware onto it. It's not quite there yet. But the idea is that you can run a RISC-V core as a soft core on this thing, and you can get MicroPython deployed to it. And so while I was at the sprint day, Tim helped me go through that process of building a RISC-V compiler and compiling MicroPython for it. So it's kind of cool.
Now, if anyone wants photos, Tim gave me a bunch. Oh, actually, okay, cool. Same deal.
Plenty of them. Thank you, Tim. We've got heaps of them here. So the deal that Tim always likes to say is that he's happy to give anyone these things, but he'd like you to try them. He'd like you to use them, and he'd like you to do something with them. So I've got one here. You can all get a FOMO. So whoever wants one, come grab one. Encourage you to use it, and we can play with MicroPython on it. MicroPython is really raw on it at the moment. It could do with a lot more of us contributing to it. I'm sure Tim would be very happy to have us do that, and so would Sean. So, yeah, I'll give you those guys. Yeah, I'll spread them out in a minute. And this is my last slide. Things that went down in the sprint day. We've got like 2 stub generators now. Oliver started one. Ray, Oliver, you've started one. It's a web-based system. These things are required when you're trying, well, not required, but they help you build the wrapper logic around your C code to expose it to MicroPython. So quite helpful for developing those C modules. And during the sprint day, Oliver did a couple of things on that. Actually, you didn't on the sprint day. No, I could. But Ryan did UStubby, which is a different alternative implementation. It's written in Python using types to suggest how those stubs should be generated. But we had a bunch of beginners get involved. Damien farmed out a bunch of tickets. I don't know how far we got through them, but yeah, a couple of them we worked on.
Yeah.
We discussed forum and wiki improvements. UPIP had some improvements that I've yet to see come back, but I saw those changes and I want to see them.
I didn't see it.
Yeah. I mean to chase that guy out. Anyway, he made it so you can do it by version. Basically improved all the versioning, which was really cool. Andrew put together the CI system remotely. You were in Melbourne, I think, at the time.
Yeah.
And there was a really cute microbit tribute from Dr. Vicky Lowe, which I can't show you, but it animates it, looks cool. And click on the link and you can see it. And yeah, I've got a forum post which describes that in a little more detail. I'm not going to do that demo today. That's it. I was going to introduce Damien, but I think we'll go straight to pizza because it's going to get cold.
I'm happy to talk after these.
Okay, cool. Let's get pizza in as well. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.